welcome. We're glad to see so many of you here this afternoon. I used the word celebration. I very deliberately used that word in all the communications about this event because we very much want this to be a celebration, a tribute, to show and to recall and to share the memories of all that we most appreciate about Tara. You've probably had a chance to look at the slideshow. We'll have another chance to look at it at the end of the afternoon. I know colleagues had a great deal of pleasure putting that together and sequencing these memories of Tara's long career in the faculty. I must say, one of the things that struck me about it when I looked at it for the first time earlier this week, there are lots of photos of celebrations, which is great, and very appropriate for this event, but there were a number of photos that seemed to provide evidence to support my theory that speech and hearing science always wins a disproportionate number of prizes at our faculty Chinese New Year lunch. So if you look at the slideshow again later, you'll know what I mean. When we organised this event, I sent an email out to a number of former colleagues and former students of Tara's, inviting them to contribute if they could in any way. And I was struck by the extraordinary response that I had. I mean, just two examples. One was that I sent that email out, and within about half an hour of my sending out that email, this lady here, Anne Zubrick, phoned me from Australia and said, yes, I'd love to contribute, and what's more, I'd love to be able to contribute in person. And so we are absolutely delighted that Anne has made the effort to come here, and will share her thoughts and memories with you later, but that's wonderful, Anne, so thank you so very, very much. Other former colleagues like Paul Fletcher back in the UK were unable to join us, but Paul was equally determined to contribute, and we've had some at times frustrating, at times hilarious efforts to get Paul to successfully record a video and upload a video that we could show here. And thanks to Paul's extraordinary patience and persistence, and the equally extraordinary patience and persistence of Desmond Ho and the technical team here, 4:30 yesterday afternoon we actually had a video of Paul, which we will also see later. So that was wonderful. Other people who wanted to be here couldn't be here. The Vice-Chancellor would have liked to be here, but he is in Beijing. But he's asked Amy Choi, who's here contributing as a friend and colleague anyway, he's asked Amy to contribute on his behalf to the proceedings. I also tried to contact Alice Lee, Tara's former PhD student who's now at the University of Cork. She wasn't able to come, wasn't able to send a video, but she asked me to say some words which I promised I would read out. What Alice says is that Tara is truly a wonderful supervisor and mentor. I've learned a lot from her, not only research skills, but many other things that are important for being a learner, educator, clinician, and researcher. She was really a role model for me, and without her teaching and enlightenment, I probably wouldn't have pursued my postgraduate study and certainly wouldn't have entered academia. Her knowledge, enthusiasm, and wisdom have inspired me. It's really a privilege to have been one of her research students. And I'm sure that sums up the views of many who've been taught by Tara over the years. Before I hand over to other colleagues to share, we'd just like to share a couple of thoughts of my own. I've been in the faculty for 23 years, so Tara was a colleague of mine throughout that time. And one of the things I always associate with Tara is an extraordinary positivity and zest for life. Now, I won't get into any stereotypes about red hair, but for me there was something about the combination of red hair and that bright yellow car which were a statement about zest for life and positivity, and that was one of the things that I associate so much with Tara. Along the same lines, I remember from the Stanley Ho Sports Centre. Now, those of you who know me may know that I jog. I attempt to keep fit. Actually, attempt being the operative word, by jogging, which in my case tends to be more like trundling or lumbering around the track. But I remember some years ago going down to the track on a Saturday and starting my inelegant progress around the track. And there in front of me, I suddenly caught sight of this red-headed figure with a friend power walking round the track. And there was just something about the upright stance and the pumping arms, which just, for me, epitomised Tara. I mean, it's all part of this zest for life and this incredible positivity, which, for me, characterised her so much. The other things that I guess I also recall about Tara were, particularly in recent years, where she and I worked closely for a number of years on the Faculty Human Resource Committee, which is a very, very important committee dealing with very, very important issues. And I think that showed me so many of the other qualities of Tara. I mean, not just her professionalism, which we all know and respect, but also her sharp intelligence, her ability to ask exactly the right question that cut through a whole load of nonsense and really hit the point. Her wisdom, but also her sensitivity, her humour, and her humaneness, and all those qualities I saw again and again on that committee. So those are memories that I will most certainly treasure about Tara for many, many years to come. But what I'd like to do now is hand over to colleagues. Now, the way we've organised this programme is that there are combinations of, or mixes of live contributions and contributions on video. So I hope you will bear with my technological incompetence as I attempt to operate the system here, but that was me doing that part. Now what I'd like to do is invite Edwin, Professor Edwin Yu, to say a few words and share his memories with us. Edwin.
It's so good to see so many people here. Normally in the Chinese way, usually people dress in white for this kind of occasion. For the Westerner, they usually dress in black. All right, but you see Tara likes to dress in red. So I've done that deliberately. A light color, dark color, and one for Tara. It's so honored to be here to do the first sharing about for Tara, and I've written a few things down. Normally, when I give something in speech, I don't usually need a script, or I hate to do with a script, but I try to compose myself, and also I try to do not too much, just to give some flavor of what my sharing with Tara as colleague and as friend. And I would tone this as I've got lots of fond memories of Tara. Tara and I knew each other back in the 1980s, and when we both returned to Hong Kong from overseas and started our speech therapy career. Tara and I had quite a few things in common. We were both born in the same year, same month. I won't tell you about the days. I'll just keep you in suspense. She was one of the two expatriate speech therapists working in Hong Kong at that time, and I was one of the two speech therapists working in the hospital setting at that time. I still remember the first time we met. It was in a professional meeting, right? The Hong Kong Speech Therapy Association, which was very, very small, no more than 10 people perhaps. And she introduced herself to me, came up to me, and said, "Hi, I'm Tara." And I said, "Hi, I'm Edwin." And so I literally was only starting back working in Hong Kong, and then someone came up to me introducing herself. So I was so pleased because all the other speech therapists in Hong Kong were really old at that time. I'm just trying to spot whether they are. So we talked for long hours after that meeting. We talked, and then I still vividly remember he didn't want to end up talk after the meeting, and he asked me out, of course, with Paul's approval. And we went to the JCC, was it? The FCC, right? The club there. It was because of Paul's privilege. And we talked about what she saw as the speech therapy work in Hong Kong. At that time, I was working in a hospital, and at that time, she was working at the special school. So we were in two very different settings, and I knew very little about the settings she was working in, and we talked and shared a lot about those. Then Tara went and, as a founding staff member of the then Department of Speech and Hearing Sciences, and I joined the department a couple of years later. Well, it was our first job as an academic, and we worked closely together, although our field of interest were very different at that time. But she was always several steps ahead of me. So she led me through a lot of those hurdles. First being speech therapist in Hong Kong, then as an academic in a university. And then after a couple of years, I left Hong Kong and did my PhD overseas. And when I returned to Hong Kong, after 5 years, I had children with me. So adjusting to life back in Hong Kong was very difficult for me, especially with a young child or 2 kids. But the first one was born overseas and didn't speak a word of Chinese or Cantonese at all. So I was really worried about getting him into a kindergarten. So Tara knew I was coming back, and she did literally almost everything for me. Spoke with the kindergarten principal, spoke with her, and then told the principal how smart my son was, and how good and how eager we were to have the kindergarten place. So she did a lot of things behind the scene for me, and then sort of found a place for my son. And she literally kept my son into the same class as her younger son, Mark. And so that's why, and that's how my older son became a very good friend of Mark for the childhood. So that was the personal life. And at work, Tara and I progressed in our career almost hand in hand. We served on committees, headship and associate deanship positions at various stages, and we supported a lot in our learning process. Tara always appeared to be very composed, elegantly, and very diplomatic. I'm usually a shy guy or very impulsive guy. So she taught me a lot of skills in trying to deal with administrative work, as well as in a lot of other areas at work. Tara was not just a professional colleague, but a good friend of mine, and she's a friend of many, many colleagues and students. And if I have to think of a few words to describe Tara, the first that came to my mind is the word caring. She cared for students a lot. On many occasions, she spoke for their welfare and for their exam marks and for the request of extending the assignment due days. She cared about the student learning. I often call her, half-jokingly, the godmother of PBL and the godmother of students. She also cared for junior colleagues on many occasions, volunteered to formally or informally to mentor many junior colleagues, guiding them through to adjusting the university life and complicated life of Hong Kong youth in teaching, research, administration. She spoke for them a lot, defended for them not only behind the scene, but also publicly when needed. The second most appropriate word to describe Tara is strong. I read the online condolence book, and a number of people have already said how courageous Tara was. Right? what I felt was that Tara was not just courageous, but also very strong. She was one of the strongest women that I've seen so far in coping with her illness. Many of us can recall that we can hardly see Tara complaining about her illness. She always looked elegant. I often talk to people who said, I moan and mourn about my such and such a thing. And I've never seen Tara moaning about her illness. She presented so elegantly in front of us. I still remember a few weeks just before she passed away, she came into my office because she knew I was going to have an eye surgery. Well, I know she was facing the most difficult time of her life at that time because she had never took any leave since her illness, except at that time. But she still came to my office and said, "Oh, Edwin, I haven't seen you for quite some time. I'd just like to have a chat with you." And what she chatted about was my eye surgery. She was trying to comfort me. All right. Well, I have chatted with a lot of personal life with Tara about how to cope with illnesses, and she has never talked about herself in great details. Okay, but we all know that she was really strong. And after she left, I just sighed. I had a long sigh in my office, all right, having all the good memories of her. And on a number of occasions, when we came across some difficult situation at work, I often mentioned to my colleagues, both junior and senior, and I just said it would have been nice if Tara's here and have a few words of wisdom. Because on many occasions, Tara just said, "Okay, let's do this," or why don't we just think about this? And it resolved a lot of issues for us. So it is said that I have lost a very good friend. Our fellow workers lost a very good colleague. The faculty in the university lost a very good member of staff. But we have not lost any fond memories of Tara. Thank you.
Hello everyone. How I wish I was there with you today as you all remember Tara in a place which she so very much loved and contributed to. I was, however, very fortunate, really blessed, that I happened to be in Hong Kong for just 4 days and was able to go to her memorial service. I had been wondering whether I would contact her to try and see her, but I knew how ill she was. And in the end, in a way, Tara sorted it all for me, and I was able to spend a wonderful time with many of you, even though very briefly. But twice we were able to gather, thanks to your generosity and hospitality, at wonderful meals where we remembered Tara and told some wonderful stories about her, each in our own personal way, whether colleague or student. For those of you who I couldn't see beyond a glimpse, I do apologize. Anyway, this is wonderful to have this opportunity to be able to contribute to the gathering today. My first memory of Tara was actually long before the department was started. In the 80s sometime, I'm not quite sure, but I used to come up every year, hence my love of Hong Kong and growing familiarity with it. And I came up to teach teachers of the deaf about oral rehabilitation in the classroom. And in the first class, amongst all the Hong Kong teachers, there was one Westerner, Tara. And she had just arrived back in Hong Kong and was grappling with the very hot, humid summer that time. And incidentally, there was a typhoon, Force 8, and so it was quite an induction for us both. But anyway, she was a challenge in that class. She asked more questions than anyone else, because of course she had the facility with English to do so, but they were really pressing questions. And also, I'll tell you this a secret, she was often late with her assignments. And so later I was able to tease her a little bit about that. However, from that time on, she remained a great friend, a great colleague, a great neighbour, because we lived in the same block. I suppose the other memory I have of her, very strikingly, is all to do with the department or division now, contribution to the World Health Project in Rehabilitation at Tongji University in Wuhan. Now this, I think, was in 1990, and yes, I think it was. And Wuhan then was a coal-powered city of 6 million people, of which really we were the only 3 or 4 Westerners who seemed to be there. So we were something of an oddity at the university. But before we went, we had to plan the project. And Anne and Tara and I spent hours on trying to work out a program to tell however many doctors there were going to be there. And they were from barefoot doctors from the countryside, they were university-trained doctors from the cities, and it was to help introduce rehabilitation. And we did the speech and hearing sections. And planning that project was perhaps the most collegial thing I've ever done, or I learned more from that working with Anne and Tara. And where Anne drove the project in terms of content and format, Tara was often the one who helped us pull back together, not that we were disparate, but helped us see things together. She, and always there was her humour, or that absolutely trite and completely apt comment at just the right moment. Well, then off we went, and it was a really big experience in itself. But afterwards, the 3 of us decided to accept an offer to go and see the 3 gorges, which meant travelling up the Yangtze in quite primitive style, not on the luxury cruises that there are nowadays. And we were tested. And one night we ended up in a little we had Chinese escorts, wonderful, wonderful people. And but we ended up in a tiny little room where 2 of us had to sleep head to toe together in a single bed. And we had to draw straws for it. And I can't remember who I shared that bed with, but I know I shared it with one of either Anne or Tara. And Anne will remember if you ask her, perhaps. And we were amazed. We were going to sleep, or in some sort of pretense of sleep, when we suddenly heard singing next door. And there were some Chinese people singing Christian hymns in English. And we were just amazed about this. And so we were sort of humming away in bed, joining in, because they were the hymns that we had known as children, as we all came from families who had a missionary history of some sort or another. Well, then we did our work there, we learned a lot, we were challenged a lot. And then finally we were to fly back to Hong Kong. And unfortunately, when we got back to Wuhan, down the Yangtze again, we had missed the week's plane. And so then we had to take a train back across China from Wuhan to Guangzhou. And that was itself a very big experience. Again, I don't think there were any other Westerns aboard. It was packed out, and we were in second-class apartments because we could only book the tickets very late. So we shared this small cabin with the hardest of bunks I've ever slept on. And we didn't take any food with us, and the bathroom or the loo was 2 carriages down. And again, we had quite a cultural experience. And again, it was Tara's humour, and she set it up. She said, right, well, we were singing those hymns back in Yichang, I think it was. She said, right, the challenge is to see if we can get between Wuhan and Guangzhou by singing hymns and the tunes to them. So literally, we sang our way across China for 36 hours or so to keep our spirits up. And I just remember Tara, she really was extraordinary on those occasions. And I'm sure if any of you want to ask Anne about it, because she's there, I know, with you today. Hello, Anne. She will be able to fill you in on the bits I either have wrong because of my memory, or she might add to the story. So I do wish you well today, and I just think that Tara was someone we were really blessed to have amongst us, and I will raise my metaphorical glass to her here and to her memories and all the wonderful things she brought to our department. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you.
So I first came to know about Tara when I was a young student in the Speech and Hearing Science section in the year of 1995. She, as our PBL group supervisor, was always so inspiring and gave us a lot of stimulating ideas and questions. And we always got free asking her silly questions like when can we get tea, all those things in the afternoon time. Later, by taking her course on motor speech disorders, I learned more about her expertise. Actually, at about the same time, I happened to have a relative who has a very rare oral motor problem and needed a professional consultation. So I went and asked Tara's professional opinion on that, and she, without a second thought, asked me to bring that little boy to her clinic, the oral and maxillofacial clinic, and arranged an operation on him. While my relatives were more than happy and grateful about this, I learned more about Tara. She's really a very gracious person. I admire her as a helpful professional and teacher. And I come to learn this is how I should respond to those who are in need in the future. So during my first summer in Hong Kong U, I took up a research assistant job in her research project. Basically, I helped her with reviewing and assessing patients pre and post the surgery. Besides that, I actually helped her. The other helper is also here in Joyce. We did it together to do the literature search for her. Tara was a really hardworking person, and she always made her requests and demands very clear. I can still remember the firmness in her tone. From that, I learned how important research is to our professional development. That also affects my practice in the coming years as a speech therapist. That is, I have to work on earnestly and be down to earth in my practice. After my graduation, I was appointed to serve at a special school for children with profound and multiple handicaps. Actually, at that time, that was a very, very green field to us because in the history, there was, they said 0 speech therapists in that field at that time. And at that time, the school launched a Quality Education Fund program called Close Encounter Through Communication for these children. It was intended to facilitate these children to learn and to communicate to those in their environment. But I really had no idea then of how I was supposed to implement the program. I made a wise decision to call Tara for her advice. She came to my rescue not just by offering many valuable suggestions, but what's more, she accepted my invitation without hesitation to be our project advisor. She was so thoughtful and kind that she even asked Professor Romsky and Professor Subchicks, who are very experienced in the area of augmentative and alternative communication, to visit our school from the US. Needless to say, our school benefits immensely from their visits, but they gave us a lot of information of our work to be done and direct us on possible development for the years to come. And on the conference of the project delivery, Tara gave us a talk on communication build of rights for these people. She pointed out why it is so important to provide communication training for these people, besides providing them a communication aid. Or what we call the voice output device. That is, we should respect their rights to communicate to those in their environment. no matter in what circumstances, no matter how weak and limited they are, they worth our attention, and they are honorable light, although sometimes they might look so facultative. I am most fortunate to have received professional guidance from such a learned teacher who tender her care for students and patience with kind devotion. And so, as I say farewell to you today, I give my whole heart thanks to my dearest mentor, Tara.
Thank you for this opportunity for me to share my memories of Tara with you. I have the privilege of knowing Tara in many different contexts, in class, in problem-based learning group, as my honors project supervisor, and also as my PhD supervisor as well. So I have many fond memories of Tara, and as a PhD student of Tara, I've learned a lot from her in terms of both knowledge and research skills. And one of my memories of Tara is the image of her sitting in her office at her desk, editing my work with a pencil and an eraser. So sometimes when we had to submit a manuscript or an abstract for a conference or something like that, I would give her a draft and ask her whether she could comment on it, and she would just pick up a pencil and eraser and edit it there and then. It was a very interesting process for me to watch, because I know what I've written. I had an idea of why I put things in, and to look at Tara editing it to see how her thought process was, and so she was editing, deleting a word, replacing a word, changing the sequence of things. It was a very interesting learning process for me. And of course, after Tara edited it, the work always looked so much better and clearer, and it was never the same. And another memory I have of Tara is, as many students of her would know, that Tara had a very positive outlook in things, and she was always very encouraging to many of us. So when you have when you're in a situation that you're not happy about, you're upset about something, and if you had an opportunity to talk to Tara about it, she will make you feel so much more positive afterward, and she always helped to put a positive spin on things, and she was always very encouraging to us as well. And she also helped us to feel a lot more confident about ourselves. And I remember this conversation I had with her before I had the job interview for my current position. I had only a couple of days to prepare for this job interview, and I had to do presentations as well. So I prepared all this thing, but I wasn't sure about whether it was the right thing to do, or whether there was something else that I should be preparing for. And I had this Skype conversation with Tara, and just bounce ideas off her and to talk to her about things. And it's just the usual way Tara helped us to feel so much better about it, and to believe in ourselves, and to give us confidence that we have that we could actually do it. So there's a couple of my memories of Tara, and thank you very much for letting me to contribute to Tara's memory.
Tara is the dissertation supervisor of us, and I'm happy to give some words for her. I would say I have learned to be professional from Tara, and Tara herself is a great role model of professionalism. Being her dissertation student and having a close contact with her for a year, I think she changed my mindset of being a student to really a speech therapist and a researcher. And as at that time, I still think of myself as a student, and sometimes I may miss the deadline of handing the papers. But now I'm very happy that she did that also. Okay, back to the point. Actually, to plan the research work schedule, to communicate with the research subjects, and the use of language in the dissertation, all these involve professionalism. And these professionalism bring me great influence in my career up till now, and I think that may help me a lot in my career in the future.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joshua. So Danny and I were our student, and we're in the class 2010. So the most precious thing I learned from Tara is her kindness. It's like it was 4 years ago, but it's like yesterday when I entered her room, and then I greet her, and then she always replied with a big smile, like the one in this picture, and said, "Good morning, Joshua. How do you do?" Every time, she always said the same thing. And that was so comforting and encouraging, especially in those hard times in my final year. So she had never pushed me about my dissertation, and she gave me great freedom in carrying out the dissertation. But she had managed to keep everything in shape and in pace. So I really treasure her kindness and caring to me very much, and I hope that I can also keep the same attitude to my patients and my students in the future. Thank you.
Well, I'm Hannah. Tara is my supervisor for the past year. And over the past year, she and I, and together with my other supervisor, Loraine, who's also here today, met almost every week to discuss my dissertation. And it's just like yesterday that the three of us sat in her office, and then we will compliment on each other's outfit and our nail polishes. And Tara is not just only an excellent supervisor, but she is also someone who walked that journey with me. I remember that from time to time she would ask me, like, "Hannah, how are you? Then how stressful are you? How are you doing with your placements or other stuff?" And her words really warmed my heart. And also, whenever I encountered any problems, and she would work together with me to solve those problems out, and she would always find a way to solve them. And dissertation is not something you will enjoy very much, but then because of her, I really enjoyed that period of time to work with her. And I miss her a lot, and she will always remember it. Thank you.
And hello, I'm Kimi, and I'm of greatest honor to be Tara's dissertation student in her last year. You can never imagine how much time and effort that Tara has put on each of her students. When I told Tara that I'm very frustrated in finding a native English speaker to rate my hundreds of speech sample, then Tara, without a single hesitation, she said, "You don't need to find. Your waiter is sitting right in front of you." And I was deeply moved by her initiative in helping students. And besides, in an inspiring teacher in academic areas, she's also a very great role model of female. And she has told me that in the past, people think that women could not do anything. But now, women prove that they could excel in different fields just like men. And then, so she was really very inspiring to me. And I will remember her words, and I will strive hard in my future to work in the speech sciences field. Thank you.
Hello, Steve, and hello, everybody. Sorry I'm not able to be with you in person today to celebrate Tara's life. I'm very, very grateful to be able to contribute remotely by video. I have many good memories of time spent with Tara, but for today I thought I'd mention two memories from the time when she had started working on her PhD, and I had the privilege to have been chosen by her as her PhD supervisor. One of the things that the people who know me know very well is that I'm very fond of music, but I have my opinions about musicians and what I like, what I don't like. And there was this jazz musician who was very famous at the time, who I just stand. And wouldn't you know it, one day Tara comes to my office and we talked about work and so on. And then we start talking about life in general, and she says, oh, I'm really looking forward to go to this concert by this musician who was coming to Hong Kong. And to add insult to injury, she said, and I really, really like his music. And I remember thinking, oh dear, I'm not sure this is gonna work. And of course, sure enough, it worked really well, so well that I pity the PhD students I had after her, who were all great, but who had a very, very high level of the bar set for them after a PhD student like Tara. The second memory is from the time when she was about to apply, and she was working on her proposal. One day she came to my office looking a bit discouraged and said, Walter, I don't think I'm going to make it. I can't really do it by the deadline. And I remember telling her, don't worry, Tara, just try your best, and you don't have to make it perfect. It has to be just good enough. And so she went out a bit reassured, and sure enough, as was typical of her, she completed her proposal ahead of time, and it was more than good enough. And as they say, the rest is history. I'll stop here, and thanks again for allowing me to contribute a couple of my good memories of time spent with Tara, and I'm with you in spirit on this day to celebrate her life. Goodbye.
There are some new faces, people I've not met before, so I just introduce myself. I'm Amy Choi, Vice Chancellor, Vice President of this university, and also Chair Professor in the Faculty of Education. The Vice Chancellor had wanted to come, but as Steve said, he's now in Beijing. So he said, Amy, can you do that on my behalf? And I said, okay. I'll be Professor Choi male for the moment, and then I'll switch to Professor Choi female in the next round. He asked me to convey his deep sympathy to his family, to our family members, and also to express his great sadness at the loss of an outstanding scholar and teacher. I have been to many memorials and funeral services, something that I really dread, because I always go away with a heavy heart. But in early September, when I went to Tara's memorial service, as I walked out of the Union Church, for the first time, I didn't feel sadness. I felt inspired and humbled. The story that the pastor told us about how Tara endured the last leg of her life journey was revelatory, was deeply moving, and it actually made me think hard for a long time, and I just could not help telling people about it. Of course, the first person I told was my husband. I said to him, when I die, that's what I want. I want that kind of memorial, which is so different from the memorial service that I had been to. I joined the university 2 years ago, and after Tara joined the university 2 years I joined the university. And in my own encounters with Tara, I just thought that the story that the pastor told about Tara was so encapsulated so well my own impression of Tara. It was so, how should I put it? It was moving, it was so extraordinary. And yet it was so familiar. Familiar in the sense that I said to myself quietly as I was listening to the pastor, I said, yes, that's very Tara Whitehill. This is the Tara that I know. When I joined the university was still in not a unitary faculty. We had 3 departments or 4. And the 2 biggest departments was curriculum studies and education. And those of us who are oldies remember well that there were a lot of conflicts. Every now and again, at faculty board, we would break up into these arguments, heated arguments. And I was head of department then, and Tara was the associate dean. And when that happened, I always thought that somewhere, sometime, Tara's going to come in with a comment, which was put in an eloquent way, and is put in a level-headed way, and that would calm the temperature down a lot. And I've always, she probably didn't know that. I never told her. I always looked at her and I wondered, how did she do that? And how could she manage that? I wish I could do that myself. At the memorial service, the pastor also said that before she passed away, she went to see him to plan for her funeral at the memorial. And the pastor told me afterwards, I said, really, she did that? That's really incredible. And she said, and he told me that she did not want to put pressure on her family. And I thought that was the epitome of Tara's care and concern for other people. And not only for her family, but for her students, for her colleagues, especially for her younger colleagues. And we've heard a lot today. Whenever there was somebody who wished to find out about PBL at this university, the first person I could think of was Tara. And I would always direct them to her because I knew she would not turn them away and she would give them time. In fact, I had a PhD student who graduated for 2 years ago. That's Rentaro. He's now took up a position in a Japanese university. And his PhD was on PBL discourse in a medical faculty in Japan. And he was very complimentary about how much guidance she's got from Tara. And after he's completed and got the job and was about to go to Japan, I was talking to him in my office. And I said, Tara, what do you plan to do? He said, I think that the work in this university is very good, and I really want to invite some of the researchers over to give lectures. And guess what? I thought, of course, I'm his supervisor, right? Of course he would say, Amy, would you, can you come and give us a lecture? But he didn't say that. He said, I'd like to invite Tara to come to my university. And I just thought, But I mean, that really summed it up, because PBL obviously is not my area of expertise, it's Tara's area of expertise. But that just showed how caring she is. She was not just for her own students, but for any young researcher who's looking for guidance. I read the messages left on for Tara's family on the Cancer Survivor Network.
and I was immensely touched by how many people referred to Tara as a fighter. And I think what was most moving was how even shortly before she passed away, she left encouraging remarks, and she was talking about many goals and setting many goals. She listed her own many goals, and a number of people referred to that post that she put out. At this university, or in all research-intensive universities, we often talk about teaching and research nexus. Many scholars talk about that, but I think a lot of them are paying only lip service. There are not many who really put that into practice. And I would say that Tara is one of the few who really did that, who demonstrated how to do it and to demonstrate what the benefits are of doing that. And if we look at her publications, it's all on the research on her teaching and the impact that it had on her teaching, and also the continuous curriculum renewal, which drew my attention to. And I think that it is not surprising that under Tara's leadership, the quality of student intake rose dramatically. And also the fact that speech and hearing, together with her colleagues, established such a high reputation, not only in Asia, but also internationally. And I want to say on behalf of the university to Tara, Tara, you did us proud. Also at the memorial, you see how often I refer to this memorial and the impact that it had on us. At the memorial service, the pastor also told us that when Tara first went to him to plan for the funeral, there was a lot of laughter. That there was so much that it was embarrassing. Some of you were there and some of you weren't. But it was embarrassing. They said, what on earth is going on? She's talking about her funeral with you, wasn't she? And what struck me was the sort of positive attitude that we all referred to just now. I thought about this long and hard, and I said, how did she manage to do that? And I came across a quote that I thought provided the answer to that, and I want to conclude this by sharing this quotation with you. This is from Dennis Wade, who is a motivational writer and also author of best-selling books in the US. This is what he said: happiness cannot be traveled, to be owned, earned, worn, or consumed. Happiness is a spiritual experience of living every minute with love, grace, and gratitude.
Greetings. I'm very grateful to Steve for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today by video, even though I can't be there in person. And also grateful to Desmond Ho, whose time yesterday, or much of whose time yesterday, I took up trying to get this video sorted. We finally resorted to an iPhone, so my apologies if the quality of this isn't great. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk about Tara, who was a valued colleague and a great friend. And just to talk about the work first, Steve asked me if I could recall specific anecdotes, but at this distance I can't. I do remember the extensive collaborative work that we undertook as a group to get the PBL course running, and Tara was a huge part of that. She was an evangelist for PBL, somebody who taught me a lot about it when I first came to Hong Kong, along with Stephanie, who was equally an evangelist. Tara was everything you would want to find in a university teacher, I think. She was bright, she was industrious, she was very collegial, and she was great with students. And the other dimension of Tara, of course, is that I remember and treasure is my friendship with her. And there were a group of us that worked together and played together, and I can remember, you know, lots of evenings at the Hong Kong Youth Staff Club on Friday after work, times at the FCC, but maybe in particular times on the junk. Tara and her husband Paul shared a junk with another couple, and they were very generous in inviting their friends along at various times. There were many of these evenings. They all took a similar pattern, and they all seemed to have merged into one magical evening somewhere between Hong Kong Island and Lama, looking back at the lights on Hong Kong Island, looking forward to a nice meal at the Wen Ki. There's lots of laughter, good companionship. Tara's in the middle of it, probably holding a bottle of beer, and everybody's, you know, generally having a good time. Tara was a very valued colleague. She was a great friend, and like her family and like all of you, I will certainly miss her very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. It's such a pleasure. I can't tell you the pleasure and privilege I feel to be here this afternoon and able to kind of draw some threads together. I have really, really vivid memories. 25 years ago this year, in May of 1987, May of 1988, when I came up to Hong Kong and started the process of recruiting staff for the Department of Speech and Hearing Sciences. And Paul Morris was with me and one other person from the faculty to interview prospective staff members. And I can remember having a conversation with Paul Morris, who was the then Dean of the Faculty of Education, who asked me the question, which position do you think it's going to be most challenging to fill? And I said to him unequivocally, the one that I have most anxiety about is the person who's going to fill the role of clinical coordinator. Because I feel we can actually find people out there to do the teaching, but to find the right person for clinical coordinator, who has the gifts of working with supervisors, with students, with the frustrations of placements, when there are so few of them in Hong Kong, and we're taking in 20 students, and next year we'll have 40, and the year after 60, and the one after that 80. This is going to be huge. And I wonder who we're going to find. Well, in the door walked Tara Whitehill, who was then blonde. All fun that went with her blondness, I have to say. It just wowed us in that interview process. And I can remember at the end of it turning to Paul Morris and said, my anxiety's gone. We have the right person. In July that year, I came up from Perth for a month, and Tara and I worked in tandem to do the foundation work for the start of the program in September of that year. We had 30 days together in order to try and get a program of study and the administrative side and all the organisational details sorted. And she was absolutely wonderful to work with. It was just an absolute joy. It was terrible weather in Hong Kong. I lost about 10 pounds in 4 weeks trying to cope with the heat and long, long days that we put into getting the program together. But it was also the beginning of the cementing of an extraordinarily rich friendship. One of the anxieties I had was I wouldn't be there at the start of September, but Tara would, with new staff coming in. But again, my anxiety was gone because I knew that she would be able to really work with new colleagues as they came on board that year to start the program. I had to arrive for the opening of the department, and I had not a clue about Hong Kong protocol or how and where things worked. But there again, Tara came to my rescue. She gave me very clear instructions about what I needed to wear, how dressy I needed to look. And one of her pieces of advice to me when I first started in Hong Kong was, I'd always been sort of very much on the casual side of life, where she said, "Now, Anne, here's the deal. You have to remember, in Hong Kong, there is no such thing as overdressed." I kind of carried that mantra with me. She was the person who found the right hairdresser for me. She was the person who told me what size the bouquets needed to be for presentation. She was the one who told me you had to have a pair of gold-looking scissors for the occasion to cut the ribbon. She was the one who told me who the people were that I needed really to spend most time with, targeting in terms of conversation. It was just enormously valuable for me to have someone who could mentor me into being a person in Hong Kong and coming to love living here and working with her. But as others have commented, we also had so much joy, particularly on a Friday night, of meeting Paul after work and having a few drinks at the FCC and going somewhere to go and find dinner, or on Sundays especially doing the junk trips around the island. A lot of people have commented to me about how surprised they were with Tara's planning of her funeral. And I found myself writing emails to a few people these last few weeks saying, in some ways that didn't surprise me at all. One of the things that Tara told me about herself very early on was she said, "Nah, and here's the deal. No surprises. I'm not the surprise lady." And I can remember her talking to me quite confidentially for different points about how she was going to let you know what to get for her birthday or Christmas. Our answer was to be broken to you gently, so that she didn't have to do the great act to pretend that this was something that she really wanted when she did it. And we used to have some really fun conversations about that. The other thing was that neither of us was really raised with affluence. Both of us had parents, as Jill Cleese has talked about, who were very much committed to lives of service rather than lives that were filled with having to do things for money. And Tara and I have both been raised in a context in which we were serious bargain hunters. And so one of the competitions that we used to have in the department between the two of us was each day, and the students, you might find this rather strange, that we would have days and we would keep the tally over the weeks and the months. And our competition was called How Low Can You Go? And it meant coming to work each morning and we would tote up the price of the outfits that we had been able to courtesy of Sample King and various outlet stores down in Causeway Bay. Tara always outdid me. But that was actually a great deal of fun. The final thing that I'd just like to say that has been very much with me in these last few weeks is that I think of life as offering us people who come into our lives and our experiences that I call guests of my life. And Tara was one of those guests of my life. And I think I wrote to one of you here in the audience that I think of Tara's death as I think of the death of people who have meant a lot to me, as in a way a crossing as worlds part us as we cross the seas ourselves. So a lot of my friendship with Tara over the last 20 years has been quite incidental. When I've been in Hong Kong, I've always made a point of contacting her and spending time with her, and she's always been very gracious in finding a time when we could get together for a meal. My last encounter in a meal was quite special. It was at the Peak Restaurant in November of 2011, when Tara shared with me then that she knew she had some further metastases and wasn't sure that those were going to be treatable. But nonetheless, we had a wonderful lunch together. We did a walk around the peak, just sharing all kinds of recollections and memories. And I guess that with guests of our lives, what happens is they live with us still. They live with us still. And Tara, you'll be part of my life for the rest of my life. So, thank you.
Thank you everybody for coming and sharing your memories. I hope you will stay and continue to share your memories informally, and also share the lovely refreshments which we have. So please do stay and help yourselves and continue the sharing. Thank you very much.